Hi, I'm Chris, the host of True Believers, a comic book podcast, my show about all things comics and loosely pop culture. This episode of True Believers is a weird one, but in a way they're all kind of weird ones, so that tracks. This episode is made in partnership with Magic Mind, but you'll hear more about that later. For this week's episode, I read a book called The League of Regrettable Superheroes, Half-Baked Heroes from Comic Book History by Jon Morris, and I thought it'd be cool to go over some of my disagreements with Jon Morris. The first thing is, I don't think he's entirely wrong. Most of this book, I was with him. Some of these are racist, poorly thought out, poorly designed. Most of them are racist, poorly thought out, poorly designed, poorly executed. I understand how most of them would never run for any length of time. I don't understand how most of them got made, but I'm going to talk about where he was right-ish, as in I could kind of see it for this. Number one, he put up my man, Brother Voodoo, also known as Jericho Drum, debuted Strange Tales number 169, September 1973, Marvel Comics, of course. Most recently, I think he's been the headmaster of Strange Academy, and at one point he was the Sorcerer Supreme. I thought that was a really good idea. Execution is interesting. I feel like most of the people who write for Marvel Comics don't know enough about voodoo to be making these choices. And what Morris said in the book was that this is a cool idea, but it's very poorly executed and maybe they should stop doing it. I think instead of maybe stopping doing it, they should figure out how to do it better. And then all of the things that they've done before, never do them again. And also stop using Brother Voodoo as a side character. He's not a side player. And in fact, the weird benching of Brother Voodoo is problematic. Now, the other place where I will concede that he's right but wrong is on Prez. Prez is a comic book that I like that nobody else likes. Debut character Prez Ricard, the first teen president. Boy, that sounds absurd. He debuted in Prez number 1, DC Comics, either August or September of 1973. I have everything listed here. Their name, like their hero name or their title, debuted, identity, what their powers are, where they've made, usually how many appearances they've made. And that was kind of, it's more relevant for some of the other ones. But under his powers, I put being president. But this comic book is crazy. There are evil supervillains out to kill democracy. You know, perhaps it was a bit more realistic than I gave it credit for. When they I don't know if I want to call it a reboot of Prez. It was about a teen girl named Beth Ross who was even younger, and she was elected as president via Twitter, but only because she worked at some weird hot dog restaurant and she had a viral moment. And the whole point of the Prez series is kind of satirical. It's for us to reflect on our society, what we value, what the things that we value say about the general state of the American public, American democracy. I really want to say American idiocy. I wanted to make an American idiot joke, but I'm just not there. So I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. I think that Prez is so fun and funny. I think it is actually relevant because there are a lot of the people who make the DC Comics television shows really love the legacy of DC Comics. They love the backlog. They love the characters. I was watching Stargirl randomly. I decided I was going to rewatch and then catch up on the final few episodes that I missed because it was canceled. And I saw a Prez poster. I was thinking about reading the New 52 again, opened one of the books, saw something about Prez being the president. I thought it was unserious, immediately closed the book. Obviously, I've reread the 2015. I don't think I would like the original Prez as much if I hadn't read Prez in 2015. I don't even know if it fully, yeah, because I had a job and money, and I was buying Prez on Comixology when when I first started really reading comics again after graduating high school. And that's one of my really fond memories of just getting off work or being on my break at work and a new episode downloading and just flipping my break away and having a ball. And then I was listening to the Audible version of Sandman. I don't enjoy it. It's so funny. Somebody else bought the audiobook, and I don't know. I tried to read the Sandman comics. I don't enjoy the art. I watched the TV show, and I really like the TV show, but I think I might just really like the aesthetics. I don't know if I necessarily like the plot, because they got to that diner, and it just got freaky and weird. But I was listening to Audible Sandman, and the guy who plays Archie in Riverdale actually was playing Prez. Or maybe I might have had a dream about that, but I could swear that happened. So I don't know. I think sometimes comic books can be silly and goofy, fun and funny. I think sometimes we should just accept the things that we cannot change and not try and change the things that we can too much. And if we do change the things that we can, I think we should leave at least some part of it just as unserious as it was before. So I said what he was right about, that I 43,000% agree on, but also disagree, because I don't think it was regrettable that they're made. I just think the execution is bad. Things that I think he was definitely wrong on that are, it's just my opinion! One of the things mentioned was Dial H for Hero. It's this guy named Robbie Reed. He's a science whiz, as they all often are. I mean, honestly, 80% of these regrettable superheroes are just basically Jimmy Neutron with strange powers, which I guess is also just basically Jimmy Neutron. So the premise of Dial H for Hero is that this guy named Robbie Reed, he gets a mystic alien. Well, it is magic, because Dial H for Hero debuted in House of Mystery at number 156 in January 1966. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it up to the House of Mystery. But he gets this thing that is like a dial for a phone, and he spins it to spell out hero. And he can basically bend 10 into different heroes. And the whole selling point of the comic, which, you know, was like 20-ish original issues. Obviously, they brought it back in the 1980s, and I think a couple more times. So 3 times per issue, he would change into a completely original superhero, which is not sustainable, but it is also kind of the premise of Ben 10. I have said for a really long time that I believe that Ben 10 is based off of Dial H for Hero. I've done no research into this, but
I think the fact that I have a podcast should be enough to make me an authority.
I have no doubt that Ben 10 is based off of Dial H for Hero. It makes so much sense, especially because when they brought it back in the 80s, they were like, instead of a new superhero every single time he spends his dial, why don't we just come up with a bunch of core ones and then he changes into these? I think Dial H for Hero never has to stop being made. I don't think there's a case for not making Dial H for Hero. I think, honestly, they could either just make Ben 10 comic books or continue Ben 10 in a way that I would find pleasing, instead of whatever they did with the show where they're very small again. Or they could just make me Dial H for Hero. Either way, I'd probably be just as happy, but I would really prefer Ben 10 continuing where I left off in Alien Force. But I would take Dial H for Hero. And the other thing that's not just about my personal preferences is a superhero called Rainbow Boy. He debuted in Regular Fellers Heroic Comics number 14, September 1942. His secret identity is Jay Watson, Boy Genius. Like I said, everybody's Jimmy Neutron. So basically, He has all the powers of the rainbow. If that sun is shining, baby, he is flying at the speed of light, and he is using all the powers of the Roy G. Biv, like Sue Storm herself, okay? He is giving force field. Honestly, that's all I remember. I looked up these people, and then I read a couple of comic books featuring them, and then I made a snap decision on whether I thought it was salvageable. Honestly, this idea is kind of stupid, and I don't understand how it got made, but I think it would be really, 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 and I mean really fun for a June miniseries, like a 4-issue Pride miniseries. The way that they did whatever DC Pride it was, I think the first one, where they had the JLQ, the Justice League Queer. I think also I think this is something that Andrew Wheeler, I looked up who made the JLQ idea, because I remember reading on Reddit, because as you guys know, over the pandemic, I became an incel. Sorry. I remember him saying that, and I looked it up actually so I could repeat it. DC editorial pushed me to pitch JLQ and then blackballed me when they decided JLQ was bad publicity. So if you remember the bracket matchup thing, that of course my man Superboy won. OG Superboy, my baby. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to brag, that's stupid. But I thought it was ridiculous that we have people pitching these amazing ideas for comic books, and instead of giving everybody a chance to, it was honestly everybody just voting for concepts instead of just paying everybody to make a first issue, or giving everybody an opportunity to make a limited series and then seeing where we go from there. I feel like Andrew Wheeler got hoed the most, because obviously the JLQ, it was fully realized in DC Pride. We've got the building blocks there. We've brought back some people we haven't seen in a long time, like Extraño. We are moving forward into a brighter tomorrow, okay? So we've got the building blocks there. They're like, hey, you should pitch this for our bracket to see if we can get this book made. So he's like, that's cool. I don't want to say obviously. It doesn't do well in this bracket situation, as you know. So that idea is crushed and it's just gone. Basically, DC and Marvel both, they do these Pride issues, but then they go nowhere with the characters. It's like when DC made the Festival of Heroes Asian superhero celebration book. I never see those characters. Where are you for 80% of the year? Where are these characters that they're putting on covers now for Hispanic Heritage Month? I don't see you for most of the year until it's your month, okay? I don't ever see you. So it was ridiculous for them to be like, oh, you should pitch this book, because you knew you were not going to make it. You were going to be like, why don't you pitch this? Oh, obviously people don't want this. Maybe we should shelve this idea and never go back to it. That was stupid. But I do think Rainbow Boy, Andrew Wheeler needs to dial up whoever holds that patent, whoever has this copyright, because that could be a fun and funny idea. Do a cute 4 issues for June. I will advertise it heavily. I will get it sold for you. I will help. I will be the one pushing this. I'm a pusher, Katie. I push people. Okay, that was exhausting, and that's a really good segue into what I was getting ready to talk about anyway. So I mentioned this episode is once again sponsored by Magic Mind. And as you know, making this podcast takes a lot of focus, energy, and motivation that I generally struggle with, and I've been looking for something to help me with that. So I've been replacing my morning and evening and afternoon, because I drink a lot of tea because the British invasion took me over. I've been replacing all of that with Magic Mind for the last month or so. Magic Mind, as you know from listening, is a company that makes organic energy drink shots with matcha and cordyceps mushrooms. And after using it for a couple weeks, I've definitely noticed a boost to my energy levels. I've also been reading and writing a lot more and taking the opportunity to reach out to my old friends I haven't spoken to in a while. You might be hearing, well, you definitely will be hearing some of them as guests on True Believers in the future, which is great. Magic Mind is nut-free, no sugar, vegan, keto-friendly. So why not try Magic Mind when you can get it at magicmind.com/truebelievers? With the code TrueBelievers20, you can also get up to 56% off your first subscription for the next 10 days, or 20% off your one-time purchase. That's code TrueBelievers20. It also works if you're already a subscriber, so you can save a little money on your next subscription payment. Now back to the long shots. So, I told you what I think the author is right about in the way that they've been executed before. I've told you about things that I think could work if they were executed differently in the future, or even just brought back. But let me tell you about what this author got dead freaking wrong. Because there were 4 definite things when I was reading the book this guy got dead freaking wrong. Number 1, a little bit controversial, a little bit supernatural, a little bit spooky ooky, and definitely out of my range of what I'm reading and enjoying. The Son of Satan. Debuting in Ghostwriter Volume 2, Number 1 in September of 1973, Daimon Hellstrom, also known as the Son of Satan, also known by me as that white guy with the blonde hair who always has his yitties out, kind of like a weird sorcerer He-Man cosplay. I honestly don't understand the purpose of the Hellstrom mythology, existence. I would love to say it's not my thing, and I wish I'd never see it, honestly. But it honestly kind of amuses me. Anytime I condescend to read anything a little bit supernatural, I'm like, there he is. There he goes. The son of Satan himself. Now, I try not to judge a book by its title because books can be called anything. I recently, well, it was last year, but I watched a show called Half Bad, The Bastard Son and the Devil Himself. And I was like, devil? But the show was about witches, don't get me wrong, but there was no devil. It was just a dude named Marcus. Regular old black man named Marcus. I mean, he also killed people and ate their hearts. But other than that, he was just a regular, degular, schmegular, handsome, fine, bald, dark-skinned, British black man named Marcus. That was overly descriptive. He was very fine. And his little African son, he was also very fine. He was, ironically, no, actually, I think he was that guy that plays Tim Drake on Titans. But I'm not 100% sure because my only exposure to the show Titans is the first episode that I've been trying to watch since the show came out. And every episode Andrew has finished up watching before I've joined him for another activity or to watch something else. So I'm not 3,000% sure that's him, but I feel like I've seen that face before, and I feel like that's where. So I watched that show, and I was like, oh, okay, there are no devils here. Son of Satan, there might be devils there. I know vaguely that he does some kind of supernatural private eye thing. I don't know. It's not my thing, honestly. If I want to watch somebody be a supernatural private eye and court devils and demons and probably be going to hell, I'm just going to start reading Hellblazer again. And honestly, I'm just about to start reading Hellblazer again. I will never stop supporting problematic, garbage, trash can, community peen wizard John Constantine. I will never stop supporting him. That is my man. We're down like 4 flats. We're there. But Daimon Hellstrom, I was like, I don't know who would ever, who's reading this, who's watching this, and then I remembered who's watching this. Now, not saved and sanctified me, but definitely morally questionable Andrew, because I remembered quite vividly that there was a show on Hulu called Hellstrom, and I remember passing it by thinking nothing of it, but I remember Andrew passing it by, calling me in the dead of night and saying, hey, is this Hellstrom show on Hulu about Daimon Hellstrom and whatever the sister's name is? I'm gonna guess Demona, because honestly, the fact that one of his aliases is Hellstorm lets me know that whoever wrote this is hellishly unserious. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And then I hung up in Andrew's face, as I am wont to do. Andrew watches this entire 10-episode Hulu series immediately and lets me know it actually was about Daimon Hellstrom and that sister, probably Satana. Honestly, couldn't tell you the names. It's not clicking, I'm not there. So I just thought it was incredibly funny to be reading that this is regrettable this does not sell, nobody would be interested in this, when I actually went to Hulu to check, and I went to Wikipedia to verify, and went to Hulu to check, and it's there, bright as day. So obviously somebody believed in it enough to greenlight it. So I just thought that was kind of a misstep. But this book was again published in 2017, which actually makes the next thing I'm going to say even funnier. Because if you flip the page, this was just a bad run of things, because if you flip the next page in this book from Son of Satan, you go right to Squirrel Girl. That's right. Making her first appearance in Marvel Superheroes Volume 2, Number 8 in January of 1992, Doreen Green. One of these regrettable superheroes was Doreen Green, the unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Now, Squirrel Girl is a brand unto herself in a way that a lot of superhero properties are not, because Squirrel Girl is one of those characters who is not just popular with people who read comic books and watch a lot of comic book media. It's popular with little girls. Squirrel Girl has appeared in Marvel Rising, which is a cartoon series. Squirrel Girl has graphic novels. Squirrel Girl has a YA novel, I believe, written by Shannon Hale, who I believe is the author of the Princess Academy series that I have been addicted to since I was a little girl myself. Squirrel Girl has dolls, if I didn't already say that. Squirrel Girl has an audio drama called Marvel Squirrel Girl, The Unbeatable Radio Show. These things are not old. They are very new. I feel like Squirrel Girl's inclusion was a little bit haterish, but it also is misplaced in this particular circumstance, because at the time this book was being written, Squirrel Girl was in the middle of an almost unbeatable run. The unbeatable Squirrel Girl ran for 50 straight issues from 2015 to 2020. That is not 5, that is not 10, that is not 25, that is 50 from 2015 to 2020, coming out steadily. So in 2017, why would you ever assert that Doreen Green is not a marketable superhero? She is that girl. It didn't make sense. Now, I believe this next one was a little earlier in the book, but I found it just as unserious, because it is the Legion of Super Pets. The Legion of Super Pets is an unserious concept. They debuted in Adventure Comics number 293 in February of 1962. Their identities are, of course, Crypto the Super Dog. I'm sorry, this is so unserious, I can't stop laughing. Beppo the Super Monkey. Streaky the Cat. And Comet, who was a human guy, and then got turned into a centaur, and then got turned into a horse. I really, really, really hate that. Of course, they've gone from being the Legion of Super Pets to being the League of Super Pets. You might remember them from 2022, when The Rock and Kevin Hart, and I think maybe Keanu Reeves and Natasha Lyonne, and God, there were so many celebrities in that movie. I never see it for celebrity voice actors. I think it's ridiculous. And also, I didn't watch it because a lot of people might know I'm not the biggest fan of Dwayne Johnson or Kevin Hart. But budget was $90 million and it made $207 million last year. To say they're unmarketable is ridiculous. Ace the Bat Hound appears in like every form of Batman media. They appear in Crypto the Super Dog, a 2005-2006 2-season animated series following the adventures of Crypto the Super Dog. I don't like movies or television or really anything where animals talk. I find it gross. I find it weird. I find it unserious. I find it unbelievable. It breaks my immersion in the setting. I just don't like it. I'm not a big animal person anyway, and talking animals, that's my line in the sand, and that's my cross to bear, I guess. But I watch Crypto the Superdog religiously. It's still one of my favorite shows to this day. And to read that they're regrettable or unmarketable was just funny. Because I even remember watching Smallville, and there was an episode called Crypto where the dog got superpowers, and they ended up keeping the dog, and they didn't keep the name Crypto. They just named him Shelby. But, you know. Crypto, the super dog. And as ridiculous as all those other entries into this saga were, there's one that takes the cake just because of how much I agree that this is a regrettable superhero, but also how much that this character has been pushed into the cultural zeitgeist in the last couple of years, re-rising to prominence from, honestly, I don't know where. First debuting in Fighting 5, number 40, Charleston Comics, November 1966. Secret identity, Christopher Smith. Powers, none except innovation. Peacemaker. That toilet-headed freak made one appearance in the Suicide Squad, a movie I did not necessarily enjoy, mostly because I hate rats. And there was a woman who controlled rats with her mind, and they played a big part in the movie. And also because Idris Elba picked up a rat, and he became 40% less sexy to me. So it was crushing blow to my psyche after crushing blow to my psyche. And of course the Peacemaker show, which I also did not watch because I do not like Peacemaker. No hate to John Cena though. I think he seems like a very sweet man. Although I think his rap career is an interesting footnote in his life that I don't think, if you go looking for that, I don't think you'll ever expect what you find there. Yeah. I never would have seen it for Peacemaker. I honestly, there is no world that we're living in where I ever would have guessed that Peacemaker would become a socially relevant and popular character. And yet here we are. So to read Peacemaker in the League of Regrettable Superheroes was so funny. It was the epitome of what I was talking about. Taste, subjective. Regrettable, yes. Could any of us have seen this coming? Absolutely not. And I think that's just the funnest thing about life. We never could have seen this coming. So, that's all for this week's episode of True Believers. Please join me next time where we will delve deeper into the extraordinary realms of imagination and keep exploring the wild, wild world of comic books. True Believers is available on all major streaming platforms and a member of the Hall of Pods podcasting network alongside Cape Corner, The Fandom Optimist, and SJW Comic Book Club. We can all be found in the link tree below. And as always, if you want to leave a suggestion on what I read or watch, you can find and DM the podcast on social media. Email me at number1truebelieverspod@gmail.com, join our Discord, or visit our website, number1truebelieverspod.wixsite.com/1TBPOD. Bye.
Hit that like and subscribe, guys.
Okay, that's perfect.